Hello, everyone. I'm James Beecham, co-founder and CEO of data security company ALTR, and this is Rabbit Hole Reviews, where I try to save you all some time on a couple of data security and cybersecurity topics to prevent you from having to go to the fifth page of Google or having to ask ChatGPT for hours about certain topics. We got two topics today. The first one actually is not a crazy Google rabbit hole. It actually came from our co-founder and CTO, Chris Strutman. We've been wondering for a little while why we've seen such an increase in folks asking about, using production data in development type areas or testing type areas, and kind of figured just on the surface that that's a desire that most application developers or data users want to have, is the ability to have production realistic data in dev and test environments. That's not new. And obviously with the focus on training for different AI systems and machine learning systems, there's a desire to have really good data all the time in those areas. So I kind of just chalked it up to that. But the increase in the discussion around how do I safely use production data in development areas or lower trust environments, as you might hear them called, continued to come up. And so it piqued my interest, and did some reading, did some digging, couldn't really find anything. And it wasn't until Chris Strutman mentioned that for the fourth version of the PCI DSS standard, you no longer were allowed to have workarounds for using production type data inside of development areas. Now, there are ways to use encryption to still go about this, but for those folks that don't know, PCI stands for Payment Card Industry, DSS stands for Data Security Standard. So PCI DSS is the Payment Card Industry's data security standard. It's essentially a set of rules and requirements if you are to store and process credit card information. The first version of this came out in December of 2004. The most recent version, version 4, I believe was published in March of 2022. And it's this fourth version that is finally cracking down a little bit more on how you can have production type data inside of these development systems. There's different levels to PCI, so in case folks are wondering, there's different requirements for the different levels. Highest level being level 1 is more than 6 million credit card numbers or transactions per month, I believe. The lowest level, level 4, is less than 20,000. If you are any type of e-commerce business, you must be at level 2. So that's just something for you all to understand. There's a group of people that are out there that are called QSAs. These QSAs are meant to assess your PCI readiness and give you your PCI certifications and determinations. And it was actually ALTR's business to receive our PCI 4.0 certification. And that's when our QSA told Christopher Strutman, our CTO, about these requirements for the more strict requirements around production data inside of dev and test environments. And so that rabbit hole was one that we experienced just naturally going through our business, didn't have to go click through everything. So if you've wondered maybe why there's been a big push and big focus on how do we use production data in development, or why are we having to change our practices, PCI 4.0 is coming up. The requirement for it to be the standard is I believe at the end of this year or maybe beginning of next year. So there could be a big push on PCI coming, and that's why you're hearing a lot about these topics. The second one that I wanted to talk to you all about today caught my eye earlier, something I think it was from Slashdot that I was reading, and it talked about random numbers and a practical use for today's quantum computers. I'm sure we've all heard and know about quantum computers and qubits and what are these things. IBM has one, Google has one, but what are they actually doing for us other than scaring security professionals that we're going to have to change everything about our life once these systems come online and become cheaper and more available. So what caught my eye was the practical use of one of these quantum computers, and it has to do with generating truly random numbers. Random numbers are extremely important for encryption in today's methodologies. They're also used in things like gamings and lotteries. Hopefully you all are aware of probably the most famous way in which random numbers are generated today, which is the Cloudflare lava lamp wall. If you haven't seen it, just do a Google search for Cloudflare lava lamp. You'll see it. Other ways to generate random numbers are to leverage oscillating crystals, or have a mouse be moved by puffs of air or things like that. So randomness is very important. And so what this article was talking about was a practical practical use of having a quantum machine generate a truly random number. And what caused the rabbit hole for me was, how do you verify that that number is actually random? I mean, what are the requirements or properties that make this random number generation successful and verifiable? And so I went way down the hole. There was a focus on both true randomness, but also freshness of this random number. So not only does the random number need to be random, but it needs to be a random number that was generated relatively recently. Traditional methods use something called a violation of the Bell inequalities. This is essentially a principle, I believe it won a Nobel Prize from what I was reading, which states that when we observe certain physical constraints or certain particles in certain ways, and we predict the way in which we think those particles are going to react to some type of outside force, but then during the experiment the particles do not react in that predicted way, this indicates that there must be some lower level or some deeper quantum connections between those particles, indicating that there's more than just the classical physics that we understand today. So those violations of these Bell principles have been the traditional way in which systems have verified randomness. But using these quantum machines and distance and time, scientists have been able to ensure that a number is truly random because they can ensure that it was generated by a quantum machine. And in this way, it can prove true randomness, which I thought was really interesting. So it uses a physical property of time in which the machine responds with the random number. And if it responds fast enough, then they know that it must have been generated from a quantum machine, which they've already proven can generate truly random numbers. So thought it was interesting. Practical use of quantum machines being out here used in the world today. So hopefully that's a good little few minutes for you. Save you some time Googling. PCI DSS is driving the need for controlling and securing production data inside dev environments, and quantum machines have a practical use of generating random numbers. Not quite as cool as lava lamps, in my opinion, but the quantum machines are pretty cool, and I'm sure some scientists will disagree with me that quantum machines are much cooler than lava lamps, but that's my opinion. So thank you all for joining in.